Hello and welcome again to Think Like an Attorney, the podcast. My name is Brennan Cody, and my guest today is Josh Stoka, and we're going to cover a number of things today, mainly legal books. The title of this particular podcast is 5 Must-Reads for the up-and-coming lawyer. The idea here is to cover a number of books, 5 total, that are novels as well as instructive and educational. So I'm going to start right off with The Lincoln Lawyer, one of my favorite books. This is authored by Michael Connelly. If you can get anything authored by Michael Connelly, I would strongly recommend it. Michael Connelly has also done the Bosch novels, Harry Bosch, who was a detective, but as you may have seen the movie, The Lincoln Lawyer, this is the book that movie was based on with Matthew McConaughey. I like this book because it has a great famous quote to start from the beginning, and it says is that, remember Mickey Haller is our protagonist here, and he is a criminal defense lawyer. And his quote is that there is no client as scary as an innocent man. This quote came from a lawyer that Mr. Connelly was working with, and they were having drinks at a bar in Los Angeles. He followed this lawyer for 2 years, trying to learn every in and out regarding law practice and how lawyers think. And basically what he did was he met with him, talked with him over drinks one time, and he wrote on a bar napkin next to his martini that particular quote. The idea here is that it's so important that if you have an innocent client, and sometimes they're not innocent, that it's even more pressure, it's even more scary, because if you don't win for that client, then you could possibly have your client go to prison, and it would be on your conscience. So it makes the case that much tougher, that much more difficult when you're dealing with a truly innocent client. In addition, this book talks about Mickey Haller as a lawyer in Los Angeles, and he's the Lincoln Lawyer because he has a car, a Lincoln Town car, actually a fleet of them, 2 or 3 of them, and he has a driver, a former client that owes him money, and is working off the feet, driving him around the Los Angeles area. What I like about this is that he saves a whole ton of money from the standpoint of rental in an office. He has his secretary at her home, with the computer, and he conducts business going from courtroom to courtroom, courthouse to courthouse, and he goes to the clients' homes as well. So it's a great money-saving idea. So he's truly a Lincoln lawyer. The basic premise of the book is that he has a client that has gone to prison because of a plea deal he worked out for the client, but things aren't looking so good in terms of what he actually did, and he's starting to second-guess himself. He then represents another client who is accused of rape, and that client and the old client, the new client and the old client, are interconnected. I think that it's a great book, has a lot of twists and turns, but it really tells you from the basics as to how it really works in law practice in the city of Los Angeles. Last thing about Mickey Haller is that what he did was, as a criminal defense lawyer, he got a billboard. He bought a billboard, and the billboard said, "Reasonable doubt for a reasonable fee." I thought that was actually fantastic, but the Board of Ethics made him take it down. But I give him a whole lot of credit for his ingenuity as a character in this particular book. So I would recommend that one. So enough of The Lincoln Lawyer. We've covered that one. Josh Stoka, you're going to go to our next book. Which one is it?
Yeah, well, obviously the other legal author out there that everyone knows is John Grisham, and one of his best ones, I think, is called The Litigators. It's about this lawyer, and, well, like any great book about lawyers, it starts with a lawyer who hates his job going on a bender. He's walking into the office one day, and the language of the novel is he hates his job, he hates his life. He goes up to the floor where his office is, and he just turns around. There's a bar downstairs. He walks into the bar, and he proceeds to get annihilated, basically. He just sits there basically all day. The bartender eventually throws him into a cab, and there's an ad in the cab, and he's basically just like, "Take me to this place." He doesn't even know what he's doing at this point. He goes to this it ends up being a law firm, a civil law firm. These guys just do civil cases. They're just grinding it out. They're doing injury cases. But at the moment, they're putting all their hopes on one case. It's a cholesterol drug that they think is causing problems, causing deaths. And he basically just goes in there and says, I hate my old job. Let me just work here for free. He ends up working there for free. And it's a great book because it kind of highlights the problem with, and every lawyer has to learn this lesson. It's a painful lesson about taking cases that you shouldn't take. When you put all your eggs in one basket like this, your vision is clouded. And eventually became clear that these guys could not handle it. They try to hook up with this big league attorney. He eventually abandons them at the end. But it's definitely a cautionary tale, and it's basically a cautionary book. Don't be clouded by damages. You see this big damages, you think you're going to hit the big payday. But it's also about, the protagonist in the novel. He hated his job. He hated his life. He was making a ton of money. But he ended up being happy in the end, doing something that he liked. And eventually the money came back, but he was willing to give it up. So it's a great book, and I definitely recommend it. It has so many different themes to it that every lawyer should probably know.
I agree. As a side note, anything authored by John Grisham, killer. Grab it, do whatever you can, because these are really good books written by lawyers, really probably based on actual real-life people, real-life situations. We're going to the next one, which is a work of nonfiction. This is called The Curmudgeons Guide to Practicing Law. It is by Mark Herrmann. This book is great for a lawyer that's initially starting out in any big law firm or in his own firm. The book it's an easy read. It has 135 pages with 12 separate chapters. The book has a wide range of practical how-to guidelines regarding a career as a lawyer, and it ranges from how to write a memorandum for the boss to how to dress for success, and ending with a guide to building a law practice. One particular chapter that I'm going to go through a couple of these real quickly here is the 7 hours locked in a room. This is a chapter 6 which talks about depositions and how to handle depositions and how to defend on depositions when you're representing your client. One particular quote I thought was interesting regarding the preparation of a witness is that you want to have a fair witness present in front of another lawyer and under oath as well. In one quote, he indicates, I asked the deponent, that's the witness, to try to be a fair witness. I want the witness to give the shortest possible truthful answer to every question posed. Great advice for clients in terms of deposition preparation. He has another particular chapter which I thought was great. Dress for Success. It is a one-sentence chapter. It says, dress for success. I don't give a damn what you wear. Just make sure the brief is good. I thought that was very, very clever. He has his own dictionary for law. It's almost like a Black's Law Dictionary, but it has basic terms called the Curmudgeons Law Dictionary. And they start off with the following definitions were found one rainy afternoon on a crumpled yellow pad jammed behind the back of the Curmudgeons mahogany desk. I think it's a great little irreverent dictionary that deals in particular with legal terms, phrases, and so forth that really tells you what they really are instead of the textbook definition. The other chapter I really liked was the curmudgeonly secretary. We get a viewpoint from the secretary for the curmudgeon lawyer, and she's a battle-hardened veteran. She states for that new lawyer coming into the law firm, quote, the personnel director has just told me I'm going to be your assistant. I'll be pleased to help, but first I have a few words for you, you young whippersnapper. I know that you just graduated from a fancy law school and are oh so proud of having snagged a job at this hotshot law firm. But now you're one of 50 associates in this year's starting class, and you've never played this game before. I've seen associates come, and I've seen associates go. I've been a secretary at this firm for longer than you've been alive, and I have some advice for you. So I think the great lesson here is that it's not just the lawyers you deal with in terms of advice, but the people on the ground and support staff. Support staff are so important and so seasoned and experienced in terms of this particular dealing with law firms and being successful. So that is it's a great irreverent book. I think it's excellent. I'd strongly recommend it. Josh?
So the other book that I would recommend is called 1L by Scott Turrow. He's written a lot of legal books. I think Presumed Innocent, the Harrison Ford starred in one of the movies that he wrote. But it's definitely a book about law school and I guess being a lawyer. But I remember when I got accepted into law school, and maybe a month before you start, we got this letter and said, here are some books that you should read in preparation for going to law school. And this book was on there. And part of me almost wishes I wouldn't have read it, but I still think it's worth the read, even for law school students today, because it scared the hell out of me. The stories he tells in this book are so terrifying. It's like you have to go to these classes, and these professors are just gonna drill at you the whole time. But I mean, that's kind of the point of law school, is to get you to think in a certain way. And without going through this process, you're not going to get there. So, and I think they do things a lot different nowadays. Classes are on Zoom a lot. They're not in person. The way that you outline cases might be the same, but you can go online and get outlines. I recommend against doing that. But even in the book, they share outlines. Almost they're not really doing what they would do is one person would do one class, another person would do another class, and then they would collaborate. And I think that collaboration is a good thing to do nowadays too. And I don't think, even when I was going to law school, we didn't do that as much as I think you had to, back in the 1970s. This book is almost 50 years old. The basics, I think, are the same, even though the specifics are a little bit different. But it's good to go back and learn how it's supposed to be done, because I think we're straying away from that. But if you kind of go back to the basics, I think it's good, and this book teaches you how to do that.
One quick question regarding the outlines and the canned or industrial prepared outlines. Why, again, do we want to avoid those?
Well, I think you got to do it in your own way, because when you do things in your own way, you understand them better. Like, even when I would look at somebody else's outline, it was like, okay, I get what you're saying, but even the act of typing it yourself means you're going to learn it better. Sometimes just writing stuff down on your own means you're going to learn better. So I think that's probably why it's best to do it on your own.
Well, that's great advice for prospective law students in college with a pre-law major, or as well actual law students that have been accepted. That's great advice. The last book we have here is by John Grisham as well, called The Rainmaker. I think a lot of people have seen this movie with Danny DeVito and Matt Damon. It's based on the book, again, by John Grisham, again, one of the greats. The Rainmaker is what I really like about The Rainmaker is the idea that you have the David versus Goliath scenario. You have the rookie lawyer versus a veteran lawyer. This book certainly has it all. It's about trial attorneys as they are battling back and forth in terms of a very sympathetic case. There's an individual who's the client who has leukemia, and his insurance company has denied his request, per his doctor's recommendation, has denied his request for a much-needed life-saving bone marrow transplant. The particular ending for the plaintiff is not so good, because it turns from a denial by the insurance carrier of his care and treatment to a wrongful death case, because he dies in the end as a result of not being allowed to have that particular care and treatment. The insurer defends with an exclusion, saying that this is in fact experimental, that we don't cover experimental type of drugs. So you have a real surprise ending in regard to this particular book, and a lot of twists and turns. And Grisham is a great author. He gets you moving, leaning one way, and does the head fake, and then he gets you on the other end that you're not even expecting. So again, I'd recommend this one as well, The Rainmaker. I think that's going to cover it for today as far as our little podcast. If you can absorb these 5 particular books, you would be well ahead of the game and have an edge over your competition. If you like this video, we ask you to please share it. We ask you to please subscribe. And hit notify as well. And also, we will have below the links, typically to Amazon, the links to these 5 books for your review. So again, thanks for listening to us with Think Like an Attorney, where it's all law, all lawyers, all the time. And see you in court next time.